Well, hello YouTubers. It is nice to see you as always. So, where I live, it's been pretty windy lately. You can probably see the trees blowing tonight even. And we're in the middle of the desert, so when the wind blows, sand shifts and exposes all sorts of neat things. Beagle and I took a walk the other night to see what kind of stuff had turned up, see if we could find any treasures. And we happened to come across something pretty cool. I'm gonna insert a really nice dramatic reenactment right here. Hello, Izzy Battle Beagle. Would you like to go for a walk?
Lick.
Da da da, just going for a walk. La 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 da do.
Beagle, 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 beagle. Foot. Shiny.
Izzy Battle Beagle, you have found purple glass. You're such a good beagle.
There's something wrong with you.
I will use this piece of purple glass to demonstrate to the world my amazing flint knapping skills.
Does this mean I get a treat?
So, we're gonna head out to the shop, and we're gonna build tools to do flint knapping, and I'm gonna show you how to make an arrowhead. Very neat project. I enjoy it quite a bit. It's good for stress relief. So here we go. So you start off this project by building a tool to make the tools that you're going to use for the project. What we've got is a bolt that I've rounded the head on. We're going to use this as an anvil to form the ends for the copper boppers that we're going to make. I've got this socket, and I'm going to use it with a hammer to start rounding the top of this copper pipe cap. You can use anything that will fit over them. A piece of pipe would work probably just as well. But you need something that fits over top of them with a hole in the center. And make sure that you work this around kind of in a circular motion as you go. That way you get a nice even dome shape to your copper cap. Once you've got the dome shape started on this copper cap, you can take the anvil and the hammer and use them without the socket and just kind of work them around and tap them, and all you're looking to do is round this out as best as you can. The idea is to make a couple of these boppers in different sizes. I made a small, medium, and a large one. You'll see when we get towards the end of the video and we start making the arrowheads how the different sizes come into play. So now what we're going to do is cut 5 different pieces of dowel. We're going to use 3 of these dowels to make the boppers, and we'll make 2 of the dowels into pressure flake tools. The dowels are different sizes according to what they're going to be used for. I found that the best length for the bopper handles was about 2 hand lengths. Gave me plenty of room to swing them. For the pressure flakers, it seemed like 3 hand lengths was pretty good for the large one, and 2 once again for the small one. Once you have your dowels cut to length, you'll need to drill a hole in the end of each of the dowels that you want to use for the pressure flake tools. What you wind up doing is putting a nail on these holes, so you want the holes to be about as deep as 3/4 of the nail is long. The idea is that you use the nail tip to push on the obsidian or glass and flake off a piece, so it needs to be fairly stout. The size of the nail that you use with the dowel kind of corresponds to the size of the dowel. I'm going to use a small nail, like a brad for mounting pictures on a wall for the small dowel, and then for the larger piece of dowel, it's just going to get this big galvanized nail that I found in the dirt. As you can see, I'm cutting off the head of the larger nail. You want these nails to fit pretty snugly in the holes that you drill in the dowels. Once again, this thing needs to be pretty stout. Obviously here I'm not being very good with my safety. Don't do this. Don't drill without holding the dowel in the vise. Don't drill your hand. Okay, I got a good fit on the nail in the dowel. Now we're going to break out the sander and just kind of sand off any rough edges, and then we're going to round off the ends that we're going to mount the copper caps that we made previously. You want these ends to be kind of round so that they'll support the caps. What you're really looking for here is to make sure you get a nice firm fit between your dowel and your copper cap. If your dowel is just a slight amount too large for the cap, you can sand it down and make it fit, and that's kind of a preferable way as opposed to having too small of a dowel for the cap. For the 2 larger dowels, I just wound up using a pocket knife to kind of shape the tips on these and get them rounded. That way I wouldn't wind up sanding for so long. Now that we've got all the pieces of dowel sanded down and smoothed out, it's time to break out the hot glue gun and start putting everything together. So real quick before I glue these caps onto the dowels, I'm just going to rough up the inside of them with a piece of sandpaper. That way the glue has somewhere to grip. The basic gist of what I'm doing here is just putting a bunch of hot glue into these metal caps and then jamming the dowel into the cap. Apply a lot of pressure to this when you do it. You want these things to seat up well. You want this to be pretty stout. You're actually going to wind up hitting the obsidian or the glass with these things, so they need to be pretty rugged. Okay, we're ready to try to glue the nails into the dowels. There's kind of a trick to this, especially with the bigger nail. You wind up filling the hole that you've drilled with glue and then putting some glue on the end of the nail and trying to put it together as best as you can. But the reality is that you need to break out a torch and heat the nail so that it can be pushed into the dowel far enough to do the job properly. As always, when you've got a torch out, be careful, don't light anything on fire, especially, yourself. The glue is fairly flammable, so please be careful. Now we're basically going to repeat the process with the smaller dowel and the smaller nail. This one isn't nearly as hard to put together. You shouldn't have to break out the torch to get these assembled. For the smaller pressure flake tool, you might put a little bit of extra glue around the tip of the dowel just to make sure that nail is held in there well. So the last step in building these tools is to cut off the excess of the large nail and then use a sander or a grinder to put a point on it. So you want about a half an inch of nail sticking out of the little flake tool and probably about an inch to an inch and a quarter out of the larger one. You want a pretty good point on these as well. The sharper the point is, the better these are going to work. They can get a better grip in the glass or obsidian, and they'll be better tools for flaking. Okay, we've got our tools built. Now comes the hard part. So primitive people would use antler or bone or stone or whatever they could find when they were doing flint knapping. I've got a piece of antler. I'm going to show you a little bit of how it works and whatnot. It's a very similar technique to how you would use the tools that we made. The reality is that the tools we made are far superior to the antler. You can't really get the same grip and the same kind of action out of the antler or a piece of stone as you can out of the copper bopper and the pressure flaking tools. I definitely want to recommend to beginners, start off with glass. Obsidian, flint, chert, things like that, they're all made with a different composition depending on where they're found and what the makeup of the rocks are. So they will flake off in different manners depending on each individual sample. Glass is consistent and easy to work with to start. Now I should warn you right here that this is a very slow process. If you are not patient with projects, then this might not be for you. The results are amazing. The arrowheads that you can create are genuinely beautiful. What you're looking to do is just very slowly take pieces of the glass off. You'll find that pieces of the glass that kind of poke out a little bit and down to one side make kind of a ledge that you can push on with your tools. You can use the smaller copper boppers to kind of use pressure to push the glass off of there. You don't use a ton of force in most cases. You just kind of go gentle with it all. Remember, you're working with glass. So for a thin piece of glass like this purple glass, you don't really need to use the copper boppers at this point. You want to use the pressure flake tools. You're not really looking to chip the glass so much as you're looking to just kind of push a piece of the glass off. It's not about strength, like I said. You're just kind of trying to work your way into a crevice and then catch the glass and then make it break in a pattern in a way that works. And you're looking to kind of create a seam around your blank, around your piece of glass. That way you have a consistent spot to work off of. At this point I've got the arrowhead fairly well shaped and I've switched over to the smaller flaking tool. It takes off a little bit less, but you can get a little more precise with it because the tip of the nail is so much smaller. So I've started cutting into the arrowhead to make the ears that would attach the arrowhead to the arrow shaft. These are pretty fragile, just be extra careful here. This and trying to put a sharp edge on the tip are good ways to take all your work and basically ruin it. You want to plan ahead and make sure that you're taking off a piece of glass that you really want to take off. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, now we're going to move on to using the copper boppers. We've got this piece of obsidian, and we're going to start off with the big copper bopper that we built. When you go to strike the obsidian, you're kind of looking to strike it in a straight down fashion. You don't really want to swing in from the sides, and you want to make sure through all of these projects and through all of your work with the glass that you support it well. If the glass isn't supported well from the backside, it'll break in a weird fashion. You kind of want to push the glass into your leg. You'll notice that I've got a piece of denim that I've folded up and put on my leg. That's to protect me from the glass and from the tools that I'm using. Using the copper boppers, you're going to work the glass in a similar fashion to the way you did with the pressure flaking tools. You're going to generate a seam kind of around the center line of your piece of glass and use that to work the glass down to a small size. You're looking to thin the glass while you shape it. The thinner the glass is, the easier it is to put the tabs in it. I feel it's important to provide the information that you're going to start off with something that's fairly large and typically wind up with something that's much smaller. If you want a big project, you have to start off with a big piece of rock, a big piece of glass. We've got this piece of obsidian cut down pretty well using the boppers. Now it's time to just kind of put a final edge on it and start cutting the ears in it. We're going to use the smaller flaking tool for that. As I'm working on cutting the ears into this piece of obsidian, you'll notice that I keep flipping it over. The gist of it is that you want to take a piece off of each side as you go. How you get a nice even cut into this piece of glass. You don't want to get crazy with this. Remember, this is the part where it's easy to take off too much or break the tabs or the tip of the arrowhead off. And here we've got a nice black arrowhead to go with the purple one we made earlier. Here I've got a bunch of different arrowheads that I've made through the last couple days. You can see the difference in color and variation in stone with them. Try different things. Experiment with different stones and see what you can make. It's a good time. I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I've enjoyed making it. If you did enjoy it, please hit the subscribe button. If you have any questions, please make sure you leave them in the comments below. As always, I'm John Can. Thank you for watching, and remember, if I can build it, so can you. Are you beagle? Are you beagle?